Hello, YouTube. This is going to video on. I guess I'll start it off with the title about. I was watching some old footage of I think it was Russian Revolution. It was like, I don't know, 1970s or around there, the October. Um, you know, Basically, this is the Russian Revolution. I was watching it, and I was watching lots of historical footage. I sometimes like to go back and look at old street scenes from London and Berlin and the Weimar Republic, and like old movies like the expressionist films from 1920s Germany, and just stuff. I was watching footage of the Russian Revolution. Um, Damn, I can't think of what they called it. But anyways, I was watching that, and it just kind of, historic history. I like history. And one of the things that has dawned on me is that everyone, no matter what they did or who they were, whether they died, that either changed in a street corner or whether or not they died in a fucking um, castle, you know, or something. They all start off, in many cases, everyone has to start somewhere. I think that if you look at a lot of the Russian revolutionaries, and to make things clear here, I'm not a communist. I haven't, like changed teams or some shit. But I do find some of the communist history and theories and things to be interesting. I have read the Communist Manifesto. There's some stuff in it I agree with, some stuff I don't. But if you look at those people, the reason I'm bringing this up is a lot of those people, in many cases, started out, in some cases, as lower class. Some of them had mental issues. And Trotsky, for example, I don't think anyone would call Trotsky a loser or a failure, but even after the revolution, he was exiled from Russia. He was more or less pushed out by the other communists, ended up in Mexico, and got stabbed in a bar fight. I mean, that's how he died. So, you know, from my understanding, or something like that. Anyways, he got stabbed in Mexico. I mean, that was, Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche went insane supposedly before he died. Nikolai Tesla, or Tesla, how do you say his name? He died. He was an inventor and everything else. Um, Einstein said that he wasn't the most intelligent man on earth, but the guy I'm talking about, he was. And I used to, I've looked into him some. I haven't looked a lot into him, but he was a person who was very intelligent. He died in poverty. But the point is, everyone has to start somewhere. A group of people that I think is a lot worse than the communists. I think we can all agree were, nothing good came out of what they did, even for them in the long run, were the Nazis. But even with the Nazis, a lot of them were, they were in many cases mentally ill. Some of the lower class mentally ill. Hitler had mental illness. He was a drug addict, drug addictions, so on and so forth. But hey, look at how they did eventually shake up shit and really change the world. And sometimes all it takes is somebody that, maybe people think that, they can't really, they don't have it in them and they're not going to change anything and they're fucking losers and whatever else. Some of those people go on to really affect the world in some profound ways and make serious changes in the world around them. And that is not unheard of, and that does happen. So, there's that. Now, I think with that said, there were some things on their side. For whatever reason, they were able to network, and they were able to kind of really, get things on the road and get shit going. But nevertheless, at one point, they were themselves people that just did a lot of writing and had a lot of writings, and they would write their ideas down. They would argue, I'm sure in many cases with each other. They, whatever. But once they got things rolling, and once they got the momentum going on their side, it snowballed. Of course, they also had funding. That was one thing they had that we don't have is the funds. They had money. Wherever they got the money from, however they did it, they found ways to get money. But once they got that money and once they got momentum on their side, they were able to get that shit on the road, and they changed the world. Most of the 20th century in the world in profound ways. Um, so there's that, I guess, and one thing, if there's anything good about Antifa, or the Antifa, and probably the only thing about them is they are very proactive. Um, they know how to mobilize and this shit. They know how to mobilize, and they have funding from wherever they're getting it from, George Soros or wherever. They have that going for them, and I do not like Antifa. But who the hell knows? A few years from now, political alignments might change. Shit might happen. Hey, maybe I'll support them one day. And another thing I want to say on that issue, by the way, before I talk about the next thing, is that a lot of it, I think, is also astrological. Um, a lot of it has to do with the alignment of stars and different astrological events. Um, and I mean, the founding fathers, for example, when they founded America, they were very much into the occult, and they rated. I think before they signed, I think it was the Declaration of Independence, or was it the Constitution? I don't even remember, but they supposedly postponed a certain signing of a certain bill until the planets and everything were in an astrologically favorable position. So that's how astrology affected them. Of course, you can be too much into that. That's actually what fucked the Nazis with, I think it was Rudolf Hess. Rudolf Hess actually pretty much flew into enemy territory. He flew to the enemies or whatever. He landed in Scotland and was captured by the UK. And that was pretty much what really turned the war around for the Allies. And it was one of the reasons the Nazis lost was that. And as much as I like astrology, but that's just fucking stupid. Still, anyways, there's that. But back to Antifa. One of the things I don't like about the left wing, or the left, well, there's actually two primary main issues. I don't like their political correctness. I think they're outrageous or just plain ridiculous with their political correct bullshit. I think that they don't like to let other people have opinions. I don't think they're very open-minded. I think they have a lot of problems when it comes to listening to other people's beliefs. They're too closed-minded, and they can't even take a joke. And in some cases, I've seen them say things that are much worse than what some other people say, and yet they don't want to listen to someone else tell a joke or have an opinion or so on and so forth. So I find that to be obnoxious. And also the gender bias. I don't believe in male privilege, but even if you do, I think you have to admit that they can be absolutely ridiculous with the gender bias or some of the anti-male bullshit. On the other hand, of the right wing, or the right wing of the spectrum, one of the reasons I'm not a right winger, and one of the things I really don't like about them, is the homophobia and transphobia that they have, and I have never understood that. And I think that is a big issue with them, and I know that because I've seen that and witnessed that firsthand with some of these people. And of course, there are some racism and anti-Semitism as well, and I don't agree with that either. But I think there's the homophobia is much worse, and especially in the transphobia, and also I can kind of begin to understand the other two is a human emotion. Because with like anti-Semitism, for example, not all of that, but at least part of that is religious. And I don't like any religion other than Satanism, and that's not a religion. Satanism or Luciferianism is my branch of that religion. It's not a religion, it's really a philosophy. And racism and xenophobia, it has to do with a human impulse that people have. And we even have that as an individual. I think people individually can be very xenophobic towards even other individuals. And I think that that's part of the human mind, and is a primate, and also the reptilian impulse in the human mind is the subconscious is very strong, and people have that. As to where I just don't understand being against gay people, or how in the hell you care, or what you care about someone else being gay, or how two gay guys having sex, getting married, adopting children, or someone being transgender, how that affects you in the least. I don't even begin to understand or comprehend the dislike or your dislike for these people on that subject. So I don't get that, and I don't understand that, and when I don't understand something, that's really when I think that I can be very negative, more so, or more aggressively negative. And I don't even begin to understand homophobia, even with something like the drag of kids. I've talked about this before. They say you're sexualizing the children. They say child abuse, and you say why? Well, you're sexualizing the children. But that doesn't make any sense because all they're doing, and I've seen some of these kids, I don't think they're being sexualized. What they're doing, more or less, is you have these little boys dressing like little girls. And the problem with saying that's being sexual is in order to say that, you would almost have to be saying being a little girl is being sexual. So are you saying that? Because if not, then what the hell are you talking about? And that's what they do. They accuse others of what they are guilty of themselves in many cases. That's what they do. Um, and also, I will tell you, I'll go back to the circumcision issue. That, in many cases, in my opinion, is sexualizing of the children, never reminding the fact that, first of all, you're dealing with the genitals of the child. But second of all, in many cases, females and some males will say that one of the reasons they do that is so that, the child will be more sexually attracted, supposedly, to females one day. Not even understanding the fact, by the way, that if you didn't do that to begin with, no one would give a rat's ass about that. It wouldn't be normal. And the only reason that would be, so the only reason people think that's better, that is better, is because it's normal, or that's become the common thing to do. But you're literally saying you're going to then perform a cosmetic surgery on an unconsenting infant child, your child, and you're doing this because so their girlfriend or some girl or guy will like them. If maybe they'll be gay, who knows? Will like, God forbid that's the case, right? But they will like them 18, 19, 20 years from now. And because of what you're largely basing down, by the way, in some cases, on what your sexual preference is, as if to say, you're more or less thinking about your child as being sexual. You're talking about a goddamn child, infant, toddler, whatever. It's just the insanity of that. And then you want to talk about drag kids and kids dressing like drag queens. You want to talk about that being sexual after you have already sexualized them, in some cases, right after birth. It's an insanity. It's a mental illness, delusion, sickness that this country has accepted, and it makes no fucking sense. So that's some bullshit that I don't understand. But again, the point is, I think philosophers and people, and I think one of the things that you have to give the old communists credit for, as well as the people in the French Revolution, in the early colonies of the early America, or early Americas, and even the Nazis, you all have to give them all credit for being able to mobilize, network, interact, and they did that without the internet. But they, one minute. But they were able to do that without the internet, and they were able to do that without the internet, and again, among people, finding even on the internet specific people in many cases that you agree with precisely or specifically, that might agree with you, that you can network or interact with, is not a commonality in many cases, but yet somehow they manage to find a way to make that shit work for them. So that is quite fascinating, and that's something. But I guess that's about it. If I had anything else to say, it's that I don't think the current political movement it should be left or right. It should be something. 1 minute. I don't think it should be left or right. I think it should be something that is a moderate left of center, right of center political movement. And I mean, it's hard to say what it would look like, but I would like for it to be liberal. And I've said before, I'm a liberal humanist, and I am. But I do admire, I think, the old Bolshevik communist ability to really do what they did. And I would like to see one day, or hope to see one day, that old communist in what you saw in French during the French revolutions, and in Americas and so forth, even, like I said, the Nazis, and whoever else, and even the 60s or the hippies, even on some much smaller level, even with them. And French had a bit of a socialist revival at that point. But I would like to see that thought and outpouring and production of thought and human emotion and revolution and whatever happen again and come about again. And I'm not promoting violence, by the way. I'm not saying I want something violent. I would like to just be peaceful. And I have always said that I believe in the long march theory that the communists had. I think the best way to overtake to take back the country for the proletariat from the bourgeoisie. You get the point. I'm a little bit hot, whatever. The best way to do that is to get into media and various institutions, parts of government, and change it that way. And that's my opinion. And but I just want to get the ideals out there. However, I get the ideals out there, and I want to have a role to play in the development of a new worldview, new ideals, into then just let that kind of naturally go about doing whatever it's going to do, and whatever happens, happens. And that's what I want to see happen. So that's my video. P666.